Drink the water of your well and the chains of your cistern. Everything I need to be happy is exactly where I am. It sounds crazy, but that's exactly it. Just dig. Search in the universe of the inside, in this inner life that awaits me every second, because it is heard and respected, loved and fed. The kingdom of God is in here at the address of my own home. I learned from a great friend who is rich, is the one who needs very little to be happy. This is what your well is about. I think I know some millionaires, some unforgettable smiles, unrivaled looks, brilliant and unique people. Yeah, the kingdom of God is close, very close. You know that when I opened here, I'll get a text for us to start the program. It fell exactly on this, and it was precisely the reflection I have been doing throughout this week. How we need to find that everything is condensed in us. The presence of God, the presence of others, and if I refuse to live outside the relationship with this body I make myself a puppet, make myself a ghost, make myself an others, or live the expectations that are outside. It is always a force that sometimes we do not understand how it happens and how it comes to us. But it's amazing when we are only lovingly looking, we are capable of so much. We arrived so much further and we defy much more because the comfort of true love of a brother, from a loving look, from a friend, makes us much stronger than we think. And sometimes we don't know what they can really offer someone with just this loving look. It's wonderful, so I really understand that parable of the prodigal son who is waiting for me. God awaits me with the ring, with my clothes waiting for me, with sandal waiting for me, the party waiting for me, because it is all in us even before even May. We arrive at the Father's house that awaits me. What is beautiful is that it makes that boy believe he doesn't even have to say what he had prepared to say. It's his Father's gaze to him. It is interesting because in the dynamics of life, we are not always aware of this, but it is the first word we say when the other arrives. That's what we look at, how we look at each other. I feel welcome or not. It is not with the word that the other tells me. It is with the look that he offers me. Exactly. And we reveal ourselves in the look. We tell everything we don't want to tell. We really say everything we sometimes want to hide, but it really is the window of the soul. And it makes so much difference when I feel loved in a place. I feel. Because sometimes we don't have so much strength to respect each other, to say no, to give the limits. Because deep down, we are afraid of being alone. Fear of being abandoned, fear of feeling loneliness by squeezing inside. I think the proximity, the space we give to God to make him close, makes us stronger. Much stronger. Yeah, and then of course we are being loved, right? You will realize that it can be much freer than it was. What freedom is not to make everyone like what you are doing, but that admiration like that, our people. But so. And so is different. Right? Very different. It is perfume, right? Of someone loved really internally, who needs really little, right? Very little to be happy. And there is a beautiful perspective of being thought too, is that the encounter with God, the true encounter, goes through the loving look that I begin to have with me. I, as a priest, sometimes I find people who need to heal the way they look themselves. They are much better than they imagine, but they can't see. There are people who interpret themselves much worse and who are truly. I never say that a person is bad. I may be bad, but my essence is good. The essence of the human is good. Now, as we are receiving the accumulations, the influences of others, the looks that do not always love us, because a child is already naturally victim of the eyes other than they love, of the words that do not respect it, then we end up creating an indisposition with us. And the first gesture of conversion is to modify the way I look at myself, because if I change this look and I dedicate myself, I give God the opportunity to show me that He loves me too. The impediment to the knowledge of God's love is precisely when I have no respect for me. If I have no respect for me, how will I believe in the love you have for me? Yeah, sometimes we think this respect will only be really lived if I get from the other. Right? I hope it happens from the outside, but it really is from the inside out many times. A relationship with slow, silent time. And we want courage. And it's amazing. Sometimes we'll always look at the neighbor's garden for others. Others to me. And I really like thinking about your wells, baby. I digs into your terrain. Because for me, it is the most concrete meaning of providence. Having a spirit that accepts, a submissive spirit to the reality that surrounds me. This makes, I think, gratitude springs much more easily. Makes it spring. And I see God's finger much more in my life. I think the cure for bitterness is gratitude. And it's one thing that leads to another. A loving look at you seven and on the other makes us recognize that the love we are giving is not ours. I think it's a sacred exercise of being with yourself, and even when it is uncomfortable, because sometimes we are not holding ourselves, want others to endure us. Right, Fabino? We have the slightest tolerance with us, and we are demanding it from the other. Nothing more cruel to want the other to offer me what my obligation is to offer. But it is worth a little with justice than much with iniquity. Sometimes our everything is little in the eyes of others. Let's follow anyway. What matters is that we are faithful to the look of God, of words that can provoke in the other a good feeling, because this is the great power of the word. And when you take a taste for depth, naturally your thirst is not satisfied with anything, is not satiated with little, because it is a path you go climbing, a mountain, or the interior castle of Santa Teresa. For example, you enter in a simple room, but you are no longer satisfied with that if your relationship with this simple proposal was sincere. It was honest, and you realize the headquarters you have, perhaps today, so people are not so patient to read a long text. Because they are not patient to realize the foundation of thirst, the size of the thirst, the intensity of the desire for truth's sake. So when you really stop reading and to listen, I think you slowly climb new paths, drop to drop, by building yourself. Inside, back, everything gets much bigger. And we need to water a terrain that in ourselves, in the perception of ourselves to get to God sometimes is dry. A very abandoned terrain, and in a word you can go waking up hand every day, waking up a little, and starts to have a little, at least the discipline of listening. And naturally listening to the gut. The ability to say a lot in little format, in the smaller format, this is only possible to the deep. I don't know if you do a silly literature, which is not the case. When you have those, you will make motivators. I can honestly say that all texts have always been from my sacred moment of prayer, because there are days when we don't want to talk to God. That praying the text seems to be carrying a truck, right? And there are days when you don't want to move inside or move your soul toward the sacred. What is eternal? And I always asked God for a sacred restlessness over myself, to look for where that word was rooted there. Sometimes we think that listening to God is a giant golden bird that will land in our head. No, listening to God is sometimes that sacred discomfort that disconcerts me inside, and shows what is worth. What is true. Have you ever stopped to realize that the great beauties of the great artists of humanity were only sprouted with great pain, and that the Christ was played only in their keys? All well? Founded life will always be watered with good suffering. Sometimes we ask God to free us from suffering. I have seen that it is the best cosmetic I have in my life. And the more I learn to feel the right pain at the right time, the right thing or the right person. It is. It makes me so much more woman. So much the better. Sacred matureness. Because maturing means leaving behind someone I was and choosing someone improved every day. I do not say a complaint suffering, because I think all decent suffering. It is seasoned and structures you the silence. A silence where you listen to what nobody told you, what is not obvious, what no eye saw, only the one from within. Only what is of God himself. And sometimes people ask me like this, "Wow, it's so beautiful. What are you doing?" And I answer with courage, living a lot, intensely. And being resilient is something that increasingly gives me to live, without expectations that others will make me happy, but that the best thing in life is to really offer what you have never received. And a way we have to correct life, a mature way, that sometimes we are feeding what I think is hateful. We find that life owes us, that life was unfair to us. And at the same time, I have already found people so grateful. They are there and live and do it. Something happens. Go there and solve. Cries what has to cry. But do not blaspheme against life.